But what happened last week when they took a shot at my hero and they tried to kill the next president of the United States? Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpamania run wild, brother. Let Trumpamania rule again. Let Trumpamania make America great again.
Welcome everyone to the Wake Up Call channel. What you just heard was Hulk Hogan speaking before Donald Trump came on stage, and it's very fitting. That's why I used that video clip first, because what you're watching with politics is no different than wrestling. It's very hard for people to wrap their heads around. So if you're new to the channel, give me a chance to explain some of these things to you. Now, of course, if you understand mind control, hypnosis, and everything that the CIA has been doing in the United States of America, specifically since the 1940s and 50s, then you'll start to understand the psychosis that people are under and why it's so important for the government to have you in this psychosis that they call the left and the right, or as I call it, the left and right paradigm. Now, Hulk Hogan was there, Linda McMahon was there, another wrestler, Kane, was there. Of course, wrestlers are there, and nobody thinks anything of it. But the way Hulk Hogan reacted right there, 4 days after a president was supposedly almost assassinated, which again was staged, and I'll go into that in more detail for people who get unhinged and offended by that. But Hulk Hogan was there. What's Hulk Hogan most known for? Well, two things in professional wrestling. He's most known as a real American at a time where they're really trying to get people who are conservative to have this patriot mind control programming instilled in them, and of course somehow correlate patriotism with God. And then the other thing Hulk Hogan's known for is being a member of the New World Order, right? So it's pretty fitting that they rolled Hulk Hogan out right before Donald Trump came out. And the first thing I want to address is going to offend people. But I want you to hear me out. And I want you to understand that what the government doesn't want any of us doing is questioning the news. That is the purpose of cancel culture. That is the purpose of what they're doing right now, where they're now making Democrats into conspiracy theorists. Because Democrats are questioning the validity of the event that occurred with Donald Trump. They knew that they would do this, and they want them to do this so that they could pass more laws and legislation in regards to what you can and cannot say on the internet. Conspiracy theory is the enemy of the state. It's the enemy of the Democrats and the Republicans who are working together. They don't want you to have the mindset of questioning the news. So let me ask you, why are we not allowed to question this? Why are people so offended by what I'm about to say, which I already know they'll be offended by, because I've already seen how people who are conservative are reacting to me talking about Donald Trump's assassination the same way I saw for years Democrats very offended by me questioning events that were happening at schools and grocery stores and concerts. They get offended by it. And they don't think for a second, why are they offended by it? Are you offended when you watch a true crime show and there's an investigation that's done? Are you offended that people want evidence and want proof? No, you're not. So why are you offended if any of us are questioning the validity of a news? For example, let's start with Corey Comparatori, okay? So a lot of people are offended by saying the event is fake because they're automatically linking this to this man who supposedly lost his life. Now, I'm not saying one way or the other if he did or didn't, because I don't have enough evidence to actually say if there's a body or not. Unlike that event that happened up at the Hook at Sandy, where we could all literally say everything was CGI'd, and they weren't even real families in the first place. There was no bodies ever discovered, of course, because that's how psyops work, right? Some events are actually false flags. There are actually victims. So when I say that the event is staged, people get offended and automatically say, what about the guy who lost his life? What about the guy who lost his life? What about the guy who lost his life, right? So I want to bring this question up first without anybody being offended, because, of course, all we're being told is about this man. I'm not saying one way or the other if he's dead or not, or if he even existed in the first place, or if he died of another cause and then they chose him to be put in this position, or of course, if they actually just killed him in the line of fire so that people would believe that this event was actually real, when it seemed very suspicious of how Trump was just nicked in the ear, where another person lost their lives, and why would the shooter fire 8 bullets and not fire all 8 directly at Trump, right? Doesn't make all that much sense. But Corey Comparatori is the guy who supposedly was lost in the line of fire, right? And I want to bring this question up because Donald Trump talked to his audience and he brought out this man's coat. And he said that he got this from the fire department that he worked at. Now, it's very fitting that the person was a firefighter. They love to use firefighters, policemen. This kind of aligns with the patriot type of mindset. And one thing that's really clear to me is that his name is not spelled correctly on the coat. Now, people out there will get defensive and they'll automatically say, well, that's because of this or that. Like, I'm supposed to know the backstory of this guy's life. Is there a chance that his name was spelt wrong on his coat? I mean, sure, there's a chance of that. Why not, right? There's always a chance of something, but you would think if he was 50 years old and a longtime firefighter that he would make sure his name was spelt correctly on his coat. But nonetheless, to show you just how in our faces a lot of this stuff is that they don't want you questioning, and I'm sure you'll see in the comments section a lot of unhinged people who are upset about me even asking the question if the guy was real or if any of this stuff was actually real. Take a look at Donald Trump on stage, right? He's standing next to this man's coat that was supposedly sent from the fire department, and his name is not spelled correctly on the back of the coat. Now, here he is talking about him and kind of working the audience. He also was kissing the helmet of the man's coat. I mean, these are very, it's very easy to dupe people with things when you're not in on this, right? Like Democrats are looking at this cringing and they're saying that all this stuff is, fake and rigged. And my perspective is that all of it is. And I have exposed this many times. I've shown this many times at many events. Okay, there's a reason that I've had billions of views and I continually am not allowed to have billions of views because if you figure out that the news is scripted, you start figuring out who's behind it, why they're behind it, and what the ultimate goal is. They need you stuck in the left-right paradigm. But here is Trump talking about this man and then going into, right after talking about this man and how he lost his life with his coat spelled incorrectly, his name on his coat spelled wrong, which, I mean, what are the odds of that, right? I mean, but if you know their sixth sense of humor, they do love to show this stuff right in front of us. And listen to how he goes from that into talking about how much money was raised because of, the assassination attempt on his life. I mean, it's very easy to just see how deceitful these people are.
I want to thank the fire department and the family for sending his helmet, his outfit, and it was just something, and they're going to do something very special when they get it. But we did something which cannot match what happened, not even close. But I am very proud to say that over the past few days, we've raised $6.3 million.
And if that wasn't enough for you, and I know people out there will defend Donald Trump, they'll defend the news for whatever reason, how this psychosis works, because you can't really explain to me. I don't understand how people fall for this stuff, but they do. And hypnotism is a real thing. And that's really, like I've explained in many of my videos, what the news is. But it's incredible to me that people don't think that they're actually being worked and being baited, right? Like kissing of the helmet, the way that he talks about this man that goes into talking about money. Of course, Trump immediately released sneakers for sale after a supposed assassination attempt on your life. I mean, what do you, and these people are so caught up in the psychosis, they defend, they're like, oh, but he's smart, he's a businessman, right? When this stuff is so scripted, it's incredible. And so I got to show you this clip of Franklin Graham, who is the son of Billy Graham. You may remember Billy Graham, the evangelical preacher. When I've talked about the CIA and the evangelical movement, Billy Graham is one of the people at the forefront of that movement. It's to formulate a way that Christians are supposed to be perceived, how they're supposed to look, how they're supposed to talk, how they're supposed to act, which is why a lot of Christians, when they stumble upon me in life, can't believe, that I'm a Christian. They can't believe that, and I'm a perfect example of a Christian. I don't think any of us are, but there's a certain cookie cutter method that you're supposed to be, which is why the churches all look the same. A lot of people find themselves struggling to find a church to join because they all look and sound the same. There's a formula to it. Today's formula is more based off of the cringy music and that kind of concert setting that they do at Hillsong and these other places. But Billy Graham was the face of the evangelical movement. Here's Billy Graham shaking hands with who? With Harry Truman, right? Of course, Harry Truman has his hand in everything that's going on today. Harry Truman, you can see that handshake right there. A lot of people use this to talk about how Billy Graham is a Mason. Many people out there try to discredit that, including his own foundations, but they don't realize that Freemasons are supposed to deny this to their grave, although Harry Truman never did, because he's openly admitted, which this is a form of treason, by the way. He said, although I hold the highest civil honor in the world, which would be president, I've always regarded my rank and title as a past Grand Master of Masons, the greatest honor that has ever come to me. And that should be, by definition, treason, that he is affiliated to another group over his own country. They're all guilty of it, and they're all members of the same secret society. So Franklin Graham spoke as well. And I want you to just listen to him talk about divine intervention, because this is a common theme at the Republican National Convention, this divine intervention theme, okay? This theme is working Christians into hysteria, where they don't even realize that they're having their ears tickled and they're being lured into something. They think that if somebody just proclaims God, then they're, oh my gosh, they're of God, they're of God. Now we're hearing Christians, just because things are so bad with the insanity they're deliberately doing with Democrats to make Christians feel oppressed and everything else, which is occurring. There is oppression going on. I'm living proof of that, at least with free speech. These people are just jumping in with every minister. Every time they say God, they're just getting more and more excited. And they should be turning to God, not man. But look at Franklin Graham, okay? He talks about divine intervention, because a lot of the people who are out there on television talking about divine intervention, they've noticed that people like me and you are saying, well, was it divine intervention when someone was supposedly shot, right? And they're trying to kind of brush that off because they want this repetitiveness with divine intervention to be the theme so they can lure more Christians in. But listen to Franklin Graham and watch the smirk on his face after he says, I don't know why God didn't jump in and save this man. And then he just smirks right in front of your face.
I cannot explain why God would save one life and allow another one to be taken. I don't have the answer for that. I don't have the answer for that.
Right, so why would God save Donald Trump and not the other man? He doesn't have the answer for that, because it's funny to him, apparently, right? 4 days after this tragic event, it's funny to him, which, again, these are the types of things that they do all the time with these events that make people like me question the validity of it. And you might say, well, why would they do it? Well, why wouldn't they do it? If there's a bunch of psychopaths in our, Congress, our politicians who are working together, wouldn't they ultimately be trying to bait you and manipulate you? They want you invested in this. Why would they not? I mean, a common mindset of all humans is that what? They always say about politicians, they're crooked, they're corrupt, you can't trust a politician. So why would we trust them? Well, if you're not affiliated with the party, you obviously look at the opposing party and say all these things, right? Democrats are looking at all this stuff from the Republican National Convention and they're cringing, they're laughing. And then when they have their convention, the Republicans do the same thing. How about all of them together? Is it out of the realm of possibility for a bunch of people who have not been elected, who continue to keep themselves in power, which is very clear by the fact that some of these people have been in power for 50 years at least? And then, there's the Pelosi's, there's Biden himself, Chuck Schumer. They never leave, right? You think maybe it's really a monarchy underneath all of this facade of a democracy, and they're really trying to prevent you from learning that because you might actually rise up against it? And these people and their families may be removed from the positions of power. Watch the monarchy theme with Donald Trump in the future. Watch this stuff where they're making all of his family members into these big, praised people, the grandchildren. It's going on and on. And don't forget about Barron Trump, which I'll be covering in another video. But when you look at a clip like that, why are people offended? If you look and you see this guy say, I don't know why God would take one life and let another one live. And then he smirks like that, right? And people are like, oh, it's just a stretch, right? All right. Is it a stretch that the last name was spelled wrong on the code? All right. You want to continually give these people the benefit of the doubt? People that you've never met, by the way. You've never met them. They're not a part of your life. Donald Trump isn't at your dinner table. You don't know. All you know is what's presented to you. And what's presented to you? That Donald Trump is trying to end the deep state, right? Trying to end the deep state, and he's a victim of government corruption. Well, what other way would you get the amount of support Donald Trump had if he wasn't victimized like this? If every day they were kissing his rear end, you'd be skeptical of him. But the fact that they keep making it into this witch hunt, quote unquote, and they make it seem like Donald Trump really is going to help and they don't want him to help, while the government knows they're acting corruptly in front of us, telling us stories about how they're hiring more IRS agents to gaslight us, right? They're trying to build him up as a hero so that you invest in him emotionally. And again, when this fake election comes, I'm telling you right now, everybody out there is going to say, oh, it's rigged with the result. And they don't realize it's not rigged. It's not real. It's fake. It's rigged. And they go, what's the difference between the difference between the two? Is they want you to think it's rigged to one side. But the whole thing is fake. It's not real. This creates the facade in your mind that you're empowered, you're in charge, these people are working for you, and you really are, in a sense, under a monarch. Now, the other thing I got to show you here, okay, is just to show you how ridiculous this stuff is. Trump starts telling the story of his assassination, and I don't need to play the entire thing of his story. He goes through it. He's reading it like off of a teleprompter for starters, and he's reading it to the audience like they're 3 years old. And these people in the crowd are crying. He's literally reading a story. He's like, it was a beautiful day, and the sun was shining, and there's trees. And the audience is just like wiping tears out of their eyes. Can't realize that they're under a spell here. But what's even more incredible is towards the end of this speech, he talks about how his hand was covered in blood. He reached up to his ear, and his hand was dripping in blood. And you could see on the screen right now, you could see that his hand is not covered in blood. In fact, as I've shown you a few times, even though people are very offended by it, he yelled, fight, fight, fight. He yelled to tell the security guards to wait, 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 so that he could yell, fight, 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 because of course that's the first thing anyone thinks of before when they get shot in the ear and someone's trying to kill them, right? And then of course, conveniently, nobody thinks about the fact that if they wanted Donald Trump dead, he'd be dead. It's very easy to off somebody. Okay, what's the old quote from The Godfather? If there's something that we've all learned, history taught us anything, it's that anyone could be killed. He'd be long gone by this point. They wouldn't miss, and the sniper wouldn't have shot 8 rounds with only 1 hitting him. And of course, the funny thing about all of it is that conservatives think there's a conspiracy from the deep state to go after him. And they show you the picture of this guy, which is just enough evidence in itself that this kid outsmarted the Secret Service. You know, they all look the same. The kid looks the same. They all look the same. Like something's wrong with them. We all know the word, but we're not allowed to say that. It starts with an R and ends with a did, right? You're not allowed to say it, but they all look like that, right? But you can't say that now because people don't realize they've been conditioned into being offended and hurt by words, which again, is all part of the government propaganda. But listen, it's just some clips from his speech, how he's telling the story, and even telling everyone his hand was bleeding.
As you already know, the assassin's bullet came within a quarter of an inch of taking my life. So many people have asked me, what happened? Tell us what happened, please. And therefore, I will tell you exactly what happened. And you'll never hear it from me a second time because it's actually too painful to tell. It was a warm, beautiful day in the early evening in Butler Township in the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Music was loudly playing, and the campaign was doing really well. I went to the stage, and the crowd was cheering wildly. Everybody was happy, and moved my right hand to my ear, brought it down. My hand was covered with blood, just absolutely blood all over the place.
So, of course, his hand wasn't bleeding at all, right? And I've talked about the way that the blood looked, and I talked about how he made sure he got those photo ops in, because that's where the hypnosis comes from. It comes from the photo op. Look at the pictures. They keep talking about the pictures, the pictures. The pictures are going to be the pictures we see for the next 100, 200 years. It's going to be those iconic photos of all time. And Trump obviously knew that after he got shot. What do you think? He's business savvy? He was saying, wait, wait, wait for the photograph because he cared about the audience, right? Another common theme that's out there from Tucker Carlson, from all the media, is they're talking about, they talked to Trump right after the assassination attempt because, you know, everybody just wants to call these news people and not be around their family. And he just kept asking how they were doing. How are you doing? How are you doing? How are the people doing, right? And what does this do? It builds up in your mind that this person is just so wonderful, so great. They don't even care that somebody tried to take their lives. They care about us, right? You don't think that this is part of the psychological operation to work you and manipulate you?
No. So, crazy experience. Talked to him the day after the shooting, and his first question to me was, how are you? And I responded to him, I said, I should be asking you the same thing. And he just wanted the audience to know, all his supporters, the country to know that he loved them. And I think that truly tells you about the man, is that in the moment that he was shot, he was concerned about the country.
Reached out to Trump within hours of it that night. And what he said to me that night, having just been shot in the face, he said not a single word about himself. He said only how amazed he was and how proud he was of the crowd, which didn't run. And I thought two things. The first thing I thought was, well, of course they didn't run. His courage gave them heart. A leader's courage gives courage to his people. And the second thing I thought was, this is the selfish guy I've been hearing about for 9 years? Really? Not a word about himself? About his people, period.
Because of course, when you hear that, your mind just goes, wow, he really does care about me. And they don't realize what it's like to be manipulated. And I tell you, I've been using that example, and it seems to work with some people, is to just say if you've been in a relationship with a psychotic person or know somebody who's been in a relationship, a bad, toxic relationship, right? And you say, why won't that person leave the relationship, right? You look at your friend, you're like, oh my gosh, the guy that she's with is always abusing her verbally. She's miserable. He won't let her go out on Friday night. And you go, why won't you leave? Why won't you leave? And you just can never figure out why, right? You can never figure out why. And then eventually maybe they leave or maybe something bad happens to them. But you're always wondering why they don't leave. They don't leave, and you always hear why at the end of it. They don't leave because they're under manipulation. They're being manipulated, master manipulator, right? That's all that this stuff is on the left and the right, is them manipulating us into what? Into division, divide and conquer, into putting so much hope and so much into these candidates who aren't even working for us, which they've proven in the first place, but to keep us divided and put hope in them. Instead of the civilians going, it's time to hold all these politicians accountable, right? If we elect them and then they don't work for us, throw them out. That's what the Constitution's set up to do, right? Oh, well, we can't think like that. That's terroristic thinking, right? The whole thing is a facade and a joke. And again, I go back to what I discussed in the beginning, right? They bring out Hulk Hogan. They bring out Vince McMahon's wife. They bring out another wrestler, Kane. This guy, who's working the Patriot side of things, who's also worked the other side as a heel in the New World Order. But how in our faces all that stuff. You got Corey Comparatori. And again, I don't know for a fact. People are lost in the line of fire during staged events all the time. The common thing is that we're seeing is that when you say stage, these people think that the entire thing is staged, that somebody couldn't really be killed or this or that. And you also may have noticed that Trump was constantly talking about how large the crowd was, despite people who were there saying that it was a very small crowd, saying it was very big, right? This is all mind control. This is all the illusion of, the big crowd. And they're building this stuff up in your mind. That's a psychosis. That's what the television does. So when we even talk about somebody like Corey Comparatori, and again, they didn't spell his name right. They don't even want you looking at something like that and asking a question. That's the problem. Why can you not question the news? Why does it offend you when people like me or people who listen to my channel question the news? Have you ever thought about that? Why is it okay to question other things? Why is it okay to question, they have trials, right? Do you ever notice that? There's trials for these murderers, and the majority of people always are, thinking that the person's guilty, but there might be a few people who say, well, and then they go what? Well, trial, innocent until proven guilty, right? But with the news, there are no trials. Do you ever notice all these people are always dead? There's never a trial, ever. You can go back to the fictitious Lee Harvey Oswald all the way to every one of these school events, right? Once in a while, they'll throw you a bone like they did with Parkland and have some Manchurian candidate survive but never live to tell the tale, right? Because and that whole thing with Parkland, again, is because a lot of us expose that theme, right? They give you the same blueprint on every one of these shooters. It's the same gun every time. He was looking online at conspiracy theories, right? These are all psychological things they do to you. And what they want at the end of the day is you to start getting rid of the rights that we all have by getting so angry at people like me for questioning what's in the news and saying, how dare he? You should be going, all right, this guy, he's questioning what he's seeing here, right? You don't even know if this guy's real. Do you? And I'm not saying he is or isn't, but do you? No. So stop defending the news. You call the news fake. Everybody out there says it's fake news, done by design, right? Because they want you to think fake news means, well, when it doesn't line up with your political party, it's fake news, right? So conservatives call CNN fake news because they're always bashing Trump. That's it. They don't want you to realize the news itself is fake. It's scripted. It's wag the dog in real time. Same thing they do with wars, right? This warps your perception of reality and what's happening in the world. And they want you emotionally invested in the left-right paradigm. I can't explain it clearly enough. These people are all members of the same secret societies. You could see the look on their face. Anybody with discernment. And again, Democrats see the national convention, the Republican one, and they're cringing. And they're going, I can't believe people eat this act up. But they don't realize they're eating up the same act with Biden and the Democrats, right? And then when Biden and the Democrats talk, the conservatives go, I can't believe that they're eating this up and believing this guy and believing that he's sane. That's called hypnosis. Both of you, Democrats and Republicans, are living in a fictional reality. The induction of a state of consciousness in which a person apparently loses the power of voluntary action and is highly responsive to suggestion or direction. Wow, suggestion or direction, right? And what is the news doing? It's making you formulate your opinions on your neighbor without even knowing them, just based off whether or not they have a Ukraine flag in their front lawn or a USA flag or a Biden flag or a Trump flag. This is what they're doing. And you can look back and you say, well, you know, back in the past, there's been the Roman Empire and all these things that they've told us, Hitler, etc. What do you think, that all wicked people in power just went away and that you just started voting people in? Of course not. It's the illusion of that. They don't lose power that way. And they continue to keep these people in. The common theme is they continue to take our rights away. Donald Trump is not going to give us more rights. The censorship stuff started when Donald Trump went into power in 2016. Living proof of it, okay, with the pizza event that occurred in Washington, D.C. Who broke the story? This guy did. How many views per video? Hundreds of thousands, millions, billions of total views over the years. People like Trump and Biden work together to suppress truth. What they do is keep you stuck in the left-right, which is why the alt-right media exists. It emerged when Trump went into power. And this whole notion of fake news came about, so that you think that the fake news is just news that doesn't tickle your ear for your political party, right? And that's how we've gotten into this psychosis we're in now. And again, it's about questioning the news. It's okay to question crime cases or anything, you know, but it's not okay to actually question if the news is real or not. Why? Why is that? Do we know these people who are working at the news? No, right? Because it's hypnosis. You turn the box on and you think you're getting truth. You're getting a blurred perspective of reality. You don't know any of the people. They don't know any of the editors. You don't know any of the story writers. You don't know anything, right? You just get fed the talking points, then you go repeat the talking points. They don't want you to question the news. And guess where you can't question the news? China, right? Because it's a communist society, and that's what's coming, and they want to do to America. Actually, everywhere. Global communism. So I had to do this video. I know it's long. I apologize. I just see so many people in the hypnosis. It really, I know, a lot of you who are my longtime subs, I know how much it bothers you. It bothers me just as much. I think that's one of the many things that we have in common is seeing good people deceive, seeing Christians deceive. And it's everybody, though. It's the non-Christians. It's everyone is deceived by this. And then they get mad about it. They're like, what do you know that we don't know? Oh, yeah, you think you got all the... It's not knowing all the answers. Ask yourself common sense questions. Isn't that one of the themes that Trump uses, common sense? How about common sense questions? Why do you believe it's real when it's put on the news? Why do you think the government can't stage these events? It's very clear that they can. You go to plays and you watch people get shot in a play and it looks like it's real in the play, right? Why can't they do it in real time? Why can't they do rehearsals? They've done it for almost every major event that's occurred. You can look at the 11th day of September. You can look at the Boston Marathon. You can look at Lahaina and the drill that they were doing at the same time. They're always doing rehearsals, then doing them live. The school events, how many active drills do they do before they go live? And they go, they just did a drill here a week ago. Oh, they just did a dress rehearsal. Great. I mean, all of it is fake. Come out of the left-right paradigm. Wake up and don't let them censor speech. And that includes questioning the validity of news. Don't be offended by it, especially when you don't even know any of these people. You're getting worked into the psychosis. Go watch Wag the Dog. Go watch, some documentaries on how propaganda works. Or listen to this channel and join the website uprisinglives.com and watch the thousands of videos they've removed that exposes all this stuff. It's very simple. They want us divided so they can conquer us, and it's working. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families, as always.